Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance. And this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Treasure Travel. And here's her story. Hi, Ollie. Thank you for your help in my journey to heal myself from narcissistic abuse. I am the middle-aged middle child of a narcissist father and narcissist mother. The following account is of my mother's visit for the birth of my second child and serves as one example of many of my parents' atrocious behavior with regard to all important and happy events in my life. The names have been changed. Jakey by Treasure Travel. Inviting my mother out for the birth of my second child was expected, but my husband Greg and I discussed how we might get around this given my mother's horrid behavior during her visit for the birth of our first child. Well, if she was horrid the first time, I don't know why you would think it would be different the second time around. After my first child was born, her first grandchild, she was thrilled and did step up to the plate to be pleasant and help us for a few days. However, the week prior to the birth, my mother unleashed her vitriol on me, criticizing our rental house, our car, my housekeeping, you name it. I remember retreating to my room and lying uncomfortably on my bed with my full-term pregnant belly, very angry with myself for allowing this toxic person into my home and family at such an important time in my life. Lying there, I was yet unaware that my parenting would soon become a new angle from which my parents would relentlessly attack. Why are you still breastfeeding the baby? Why haven't you weaned her? Why haven't you potty trained her yet? Why don't you have her sleeping through the night? Don't jump up to change her. Let her sit and poop or she will never potty train. Why did you need another stroller? Why haven't you gotten a job and gone back to work? Why does she have so many little shirts? And on and on and on. Although I thought having grandchildren would make my parents happier people, it did not. Yeah, when narcs say they want grandchildren, they're just looking for something else to bully you over. In hindsight, I am sure that their ramped up berating of me was because as a new mother, I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. Clinical narcissists can't tolerate other people's happiness and will try very hard to erode it. When I became pregnant with my second child and called my parents to share our happy news, my mother answered the phone and conveyed the news to my father, who was sitting next to her. He said in a loud, disgusted tone, "She's pregnant again?" Mind you, I was 30 years old and my husband and I were financially stable homeowners. Always had a shitty comment ready for me for every significant event in my life. Anyway, to be respectful to my mother and to welcome any help she might provide, we planned for her to come for the birth. The details of that awful visit and the shitstorm that it generated for years afterward is hard to believe, but here it goes. Because my first baby's labor was extremely fast, I knew that I had to get to the hospital immediately once I went into labor with our second child. My husband worked close by, and my friend Betty was my backup ride to the hospital. Our planning also had to consider the care of our 2-year-old. Because the airport is in a big city and the bridge traffic to get there and back is usually horrendous, I was worried that Greg might get stuck on the bridge getting my mother at the airport, and that would be a major problem if I went into labor at the time, given that Betty was out of town the day of Mom's arrival. Additionally, I was already experiencing small contractions, as frequently happens in the week prior to real labor. Therefore, I called my mother a week prior to her flight and asked if it would be all right if I hired a limo to collect her and bring her to our door. This was back when anyone would come directly to the airline gate and meet you, and the limo service would have a sign with her name. I remember that. I was paying for the service. She said that was fine and that she agreed that was practical. She even told me a story about how my dad had wanted her to visit his parents when she was 9 months pregnant, a few hours away by car, and she said no for fear she might go into labor on the road. She said that he did not understand her concern and was angry, but that she, on the other hand, completely understood my concern and that it made sense for her to take a limo. However, she later decided to lie in order to cause disharmony. Getting dad all worked up and angry at his children is one of my mother's specialties, as she has no problem lying to accomplish that. She pushes all his buttons until he is beside himself with rage, and then she steps in to calm him. This is a routine hallmark of their warped relationship. Does this sound familiar to you, Meat? Where the story is going? It should. I know you're watching, by the way. This is all shit my father did when my wife was... This is why. This is all shit that was happening. Stuff like this. When my ex-wife was pregnant with Erin. This routine is a hallmark of their warped relationship. Anyway, I called the day before our flight to give her the details about the limo. She was fuming mad and told my father that this was the first she had heard of the limo and that we sprang it on her to make her feel unwelcome. Right, because when you're unwelcome, you send a fucking limo. I mean, how is your father even... How do you believe that your father could get his buttons pushed by this woman unless he wanted them to? Okay? See, my father tried to act like my mother was all upset over what... But it was him putting on a fucking show because that's what he wanted to do the entire time, was attack me and my pregnant wife at the time to gain some sort of fucking control. My dad got on the phone to yell at me, accusing me of being so disrespectful of my mother by not planning to personally collect her at the airport. I told him that it was a misunderstanding, and no, it's not. You had a conversation with her. There's no misunderstanding here. And explained that I talked to Mom a week ago to plan the limo, and I had paid for it, and it would bring her directly to our doorstep. I insisted that Mom had no problem with the plan, and he said, Mom says this is the first she heard that you were not going to bother to pick her up. And you're 9 months pregnant here? Like, who does this? Narcissists do this. I told him that was a lie. He refused to accept what I had to say. Anyway, she said she would certainly not take the limo, and they hung up. Therefore, I arranged my friend Tom to get her. No. You say, then don't bother coming. Then keep your ass at home. You don't kowtow and bend for these people. I arranged for my friend Tom to get her because I was not going to take any risks to the unhealthy delivery of my baby and the care of my 2-year-old, so I stuck to my wise decision to make the other transport arrangements. I called her back to tell her this new plan, and they both were still furious with me. However, she did come and arrived at our doorstep the next day via Tom, and she went on and on about how Tom was such a nice young man. No matter, she later twisted the narrative for years and years after this trip. Bitch and moaned to me, my sister, my brother, and father about how Greg and I had not bothered to pick her up at the airport. In the retelling, she always emphasized the fact that I had not gone into labor that day, so that proved I was a hypochondriac. All it proves is your mother is a fucking raging cunt. Although my husband and I had previously decided that our unborn son middle name would be Joseph after my father, I decided that I did not want them to share a name after this inexcusable behavior from my dad on the phone about the damn limo. My husband and I selected a new middle name, Jacob. We had not announced the first and middle name to my parents prior to the birth because they had criticized the name we picked for our first child prior to her birth. Our son's first name would be non-traditional, and we knew that they would disapprove. What we did not anticipate, however, was the extent to which they would make it clear that they despised it. Back to the details of my mother's visit. After my mother arrived, I explained that my 2-year-old daughter was fascinated by purses and asked her to keep her purse high up in the closet since it contained medications. My mother agreed. I also showed her that the medicine cabinet in the guest bathroom was empty so she could put her medications in there if she wished. She agreed, and I trusted her. Does anyone want to guess what happened next? Of course, my mother, the narcissist, did the opposite of what I asked. A few days later, my 2-year-old went into the room to get a toy. It was her room after all. My mother was outside smoking a cigarette as usual. I went into the room a few minutes later and to my horror found my 2-year-old holding a pack of Benadryl she had taken from my mother's purse. She thought they were pink candies, but had not opened the bubble pack. I took the pills and the purse into the bathroom and proceeded to move all the medications and put them in the medicine cabinet. The purse contained, in addition to Benadryl, 2 prescription asthma medications in easy open containers, laxatives, cigarettes, a spare lighter, and other non-child safe items. When my mother came inside, I told her what happened. The conversation paraphrased went as follows. Me: my daughter was in your purse and got out the Benadryl. I thought you understood that your purse had to be up high. My mother got viciously defensive and in a haughty tone said, why weren't you watching your daughter? Me: I was. Then why did you let her go into that room? You're lucky you're alive, man. It is her room and she goes in there all the time, and I assumed it was safe in there because you promised you would keep your purse with the meds up high. Why would you buy any of this woman's promises? Well, you should have been watching her. I don't want her in there. In your house, in her room. Do you want me to put a baby gate across the doorway that you can step over? Yes, and it isn't like she would have been able to get the Benadryl out of the bubble pack anyway. That isn't the point, Mom, and other meds and cigarettes are not in bubble packs. My mother was furious that I had taken the pills out of her purse and put them in the medicine cabinet and said, I guess you saw my laxatives. I told her that's my daughter's safety, that my daughter's safety outweighed your need for privacy with her laxatives at this point, and she should have put her purse high up in the closet in the first place. My son was born and named, and my mother behaved for a few days before flying out. My mother does like young babies, and she did help us. I have noticed that although some narcissist women like babies, they really don't have any patience or interest for toddlers or older kids because at that point they're individuals. I believe this characteristic I observed with my mother's interaction with my kids can be extrapolated back in time to get a clear picture of how she was as a mother to me and my siblings. And in fact, my negative memories of my childhood are consistent with how my parents behaved as grandparents. I ponder past, present, and future behavior patterns of narcissist parents with Ali in another of his videos entitled You're Just the Narcissist King's Jester. There were a number of phone conversations in which my parents made it clear that they hated my son's first name. I am sure that they resented that it was a family name on my husband's side. To make sure we knew we hated the first name, my dad started calling my son Jakey. Of course, my father had no idea that the original middle name choice had been Joseph rather than Jacob. Anyway, my dad would say, "How is little Jakey?" He actually called him Jakey for a year or more until my mother, on a phone conversation with us, castigated him by saying, "Joe, that's enough already with the Jakey." So clearly there was no misunderstanding between the two of them that calling our son Jakey was malicious. Greg and I never reacted to it, even though the intended insult was not suitable and not lost on us. Both my mother and father were scheduled to fly out to see Jakey 2 months after he was born. The day before, my dad called and said in a very, very angry, accusing tone, "We might not come." I asked him why, and he said that because we had made my mother feel so unwelcome when she came for the birth. They did not want to come. Why is it always the night before they pull? You notice this? It's always the night before they pull this shit just to get you riled up and to start softening you up. I was stunned. I asked him to explain, and he said, "Well, you did not bother to pick her up at the airport." Oh, Jesus. So at this point, you know he's full of shit because he's already been through it. I told him I could not believe he was still stewing over that, and he knew darn well that Tom had brought our mom to our doorstep and that she had been fine with that plan, and so it was a non-issue. He insisted that it was still an issue of disrespect. Oh, my God. I told him that it was ridiculous, so he added, and I quote, "You put a gate across the doorway to her room to isolate her from the family. This is a direct quote. These exact words I will never forget because they are so ridiculous. I told my dad that was ridiculous and said, and I quote, "Dad, you are smart, so you surely know that what you just said makes no sense. Surely you do not believe what you just said." I explained that Mom wanted to put the baby gate in the doorway to keep our toddler out of the room, and it was low and the adults could step over it. I asked him if something bad had happened at work or between him and Mom, and that was the real reason for his anger and not wanting to visit. I told him I did not accept his anger towards me over these inaccurate and absurd accusations, and that there must be something else at play that was going on with them. He got more angry because I was calling his bluff and had no answer for that. So we ended the conversation by saying in an authoritative and huffy tone that they would decide if they would come, and then they would call tomorrow morning to tell me their decision. I hope it was like, "You're not welcome." This is what they're trying. They try to cause as much chaos before they show up. I was so upset and called my sister crying, and she agreed that my parents were being absurd. My sadness then turned to anger, and I told Greg that we would not answer the phone the next day because now they were actually not welcome. Greg and I agreed and unplugged the answering machine. The phone rang for a while the next morning, and I sat in bed fuming mad. I owned one nice thing that my parents had given me in high school. It was a gold tone watch, $99 from one of those discount marts from the past that sold TVs, washing machines, low-end jewelry, bulk paper towels. It was given to me for Christmas when I was 16, and I was told that it was also for my January birthday since it was so expensive. I got a lot of those. I got a lot of joint Christmas birthday presents being born in November, so believe me, I know what that's like. Although I had loved that watch, I now hated it because it was from them. When the ringing stopped, I took that watch to the driveway, grabbed a rock, and smashed the face into tiny pieces. This event was a pivotal moment in my understanding that it was them, not me. The smashing of the watch served as a symbolic gesture for me to mark this destructive event and to not forgive them and not to trust them. Mind you, this was certainly not the first over-the-top toxic event in which my parents ganged up on me, but it would have been more profound effect on me now that I have my own family and I was determined to protect them and me from this toxicity. Twisting the narrative, my parents later told my sister, not knowing that she and I had already discussed the event, that they were actually going to come, but then they could not because I did not answer the phone, so they did not feel welcome. They told her that all they had done was call and say they might need to postpone their trip, and that I got angry with them for no reason. Wow, what a load of bullshit. My dad did not meet Jakey for 10 months, his only grandson, and he did not bother to come see him as a young boy. That speaks volumes about my dad. My sister later learned that my dad had not gotten a promotion at work, and so he was in a foul mood, and of course my mother did not want to come because she was still holding a grudge about the laxatives, the limo, and both hated traveling. So they had worked each other up into a rage and directed their anger at me. In hindsight, it was a blessing that these two toxic, raging people did not come for that visit. Put a gate across her door to isolate her from the family? Seriously, you can't make this shit up. Treasure travel. He didn't not get a promotion. It had nothing to do at work. He had nothing to do at work. You're already 30 at this point. What promotion is he getting at work? What is he, mid-50s, 60s? What promotion could he possibly be getting at work? Every time these people have to come out to see you, they're causing a fight the day before. It's a pattern. It's not coincidence. He didn't just not get... They're not torquing each other up. They're planning this shit out. They're not sitting down, okay, now you say this and you say that. They don't need to. They've been together for so long. They're codependent off each other. They feed off each other. There was no promotion at work. This was done to do nothing but to cause chaos before their visit, so they can cause maximum damage and have maximum control when they're there. But you did the right thing by not answering the phone, and it didn't work. The fact that they had to go, the two of them, and form such a bullshit lie just shows you how calculating and manipulative they are. They're going to go all this way. They're going to go all this way to tell all these lies, right? But then say he didn't get a promotion at work, and but you know, and you were just a little upset, and it didn't. Come on, it's all bullshit. And this is what happens when you call their bluff. You called his bluff, and he got caught, and he didn't like it. So do not believe that those two are torquing each other up. They're torquing each other up, but they know they're doing it. She isn't making him so mad that he's freaking. They're enabling each other's bullshit. Absolutely. And they're going to cause chaos before a visit because it just makes it more easy for them to control and get what they want while it's happening. So hope that helps. Thank you for your contribution and another story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general, help keep it going, keep the lights on and the bills paid, because this channel is supported 100% by contributions from all of you. You know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. And if you're still unclear, wait for the instructional video link to pop up on the screen at the end of this video to walk you through all of that. Please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.